RSA, San Francisco, but more importantly, shared responsibility. Matt is still in San Francisco in some big fancy hotel room, so not quite at RSAC, but we're going to talk about shared responsibility, what it means, why it matters. So don't go anywhere.
Dom Kirby, Matt Lee. The game.
All right, welcome back. I'm back. It's weird when I do the cold open in the intro. It's definitely something I need to get used to. Anyways, we are covering some information about RSAC. I understand there's an embargo that must pass before we really get into it, but we're going to cover some basic information about RSAC today. But first, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Make sure you're joining us on YouTube so that we can interact with one another. And let's not waste any time. Let's get right into the show.
Man, Dom, it's great to see you and hear you. I also seem to hear myself back, but that's not a terrible thing, so I suppose we'll be okay.
Do you,
All right,
do you have YouTube
anyways. What's that?
The question must be asked. Do you have YouTube open in another?
Oh, I see what you're trying to do. No. So you're trying to reference back to that one time that I did have
Yeah.
YouTube open
Yeah,
and I was
am.
getting everything
Yeah.
back. Yeah. No. This is not this time, but it doesn't matter. Listen, what we're wanting to talk about today, and we'll roll with the punches on this, and I'm sure they'll get it fixed in our studio. But what we want to talk about is you and I are sitting where?
San Francisco at RSAC.
In fact, we are looking out of the suite. I want to say this is not my suite for anybody that wants to ask what Pax8's doing from their budgetary perspective. This is his suite, and so I just want to make sure that's clean before Rob Gray sees this video. But we're sitting here at RSAC, at RSA, right, conference. We went to B-side San Francisco, and I'm looking up the street at a large hill at 34% grade for 271 feet.
That's right.
Which is quintessential San Francisco. What are we here for, man? What are we here to talk about?
We're here to talk about shared responsibility.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. Shared responsibility. For anybody listening at home, what do you think shared responsibility is? And I'm going to pop over to Dom and ask, what is shared responsibility, Dom?
Oh, shared responsibility is pretty simple, right? It's an understanding of we're going to have some sort of agreement or relationship, and it's understanding who's responsible for what in that two-way partnership or multi-way partnership.
Right. I'll give an example. My sons, if I say, go take out the trash, or take out the trash is your responsibility, and I just say that, if I don't give more granularity to it, more specificity to it, what can go wrong?
Well, Matt, I think our kids are in a collusion there because I'm the same way. I have to be very specific that the trash must be taken out and be placed on the curb where the garbage truck has the ability to pick it up.
I love that last part. We had to quantify that it has to be able to be reached by the trash truck.
Right.
Totally.
It must be there, and then it not just has to be there, but then when it is picked up, that garbage can must be brought back and put in the right place and able to be accessed.
And some weeks you have to bring the recycling out.
That's
and
right.
Not, right? And to all those points, the argument was, and we gave a talk, and that's what we want to talk about today for you, called, if it's somebody's responsibility,
it's nobody's responsibility.
It's nobody's responsibility. And the reason for that is if you don't speak towards it, and I don't tell my son it has to be on the curb where it's there, I have to let his logic be good enough to know that the outcome that he wants to give is that it gets picked up and all the variables that could fail in that. And the challenge is that we're not very good at that as humans, especially in tech and complex things.
I mean, I like to say that a shared responsibility model, an SRM, it really defines who does what when, and it's when life happens, right? When all of the chips are down, when something bad happens, when there's a lot of chaos, who is responsible to do exactly what, when?
Yeah, exactly. And we would love to give that talk. The intention of this show today was to give the talk.
That's right, but we can't.
Because?
Well, apparently it's embargoed.
Yes, you read the rules.
I read the rules. And,
dang it, RTFM strikes again.
Our obligations to the RSA program committee prohibit us from delivering the same talk or using that content for the next 89 days.
Yeah, because we're 1 day past. That's right. So 89. So what we would rather do instead is the way we gave this talk was instead of boring people to death with slides and talking about what shared responsibility is, we wanted to make up a scenario and a tabletop exercise to walk people through that. So we used what's called a kill chain. Dom, do you mind? What is a kill chain?
A kill chain is sort of like a digital autopsy, right? Understanding as far back as one can make it. And we actually are getting pretty good at finding sort of the zero or the one event. But it's building a chain of events that helps us understand how we got, uh, how we experienced an incident, how that came to be so that we can learn from it.
Yeah, exactly. And I've used this modality a lot lately, and there's several versions of kill chain, very structured, that get into recon, and we didn't go down that path. I wanted to make this simple. Now, the problem was the kill chain we developed was for 4T Engineering. 4T Engineering, Don, what do they do? You heard of them?
They really suck at cybersecurity. They got a bad CISO. As I understand it, they do something with water and river and automated chemicals, something like that.
Yeah. You're exactly right. And I'm their CISO, so I take great offense to that, but it's cool. I like you still. But ultimately, 4T Engineering is a company we built, Dom and I, to do some boot camps and dig people in immersive scenarios. And since I already had the company and the idea and the logos, we used it for this RSA talk. But 4T Engineering is a small startup, software as a service and hardware as a service company, cloud native, cloud based, that allows small communities to have automated drinking water testing and automated drinking water chemical dumping or chemical dumping.
Nothing could go wrong.
No, not at all. Like, it's almost like if we just had Waymos that you could, never mind, too much. I'm so sorry. Nothing goes wrong with movable cars that are all automated and autonomous. No ITs. But we came up with a kill chain. And so what I'd like to do is kind of go through this kill chain with you in the next 10 or so minutes, help you understand what we set up, and then pause it to what we asked the audience and help the audience. Is that a good way for us to approach this?
I think it's great.
And we'll use Dom to help him explain what he should be taking out of this kill chain as we go. Can we go ahead and switch to the kill chain and let's walk through this?
And I think it's important to say that while this kill chain is fairly realistic, there definitely are holes in it. It is intended not necessarily to pick at the technical, but understand the situational, and it's entirely fictitious. I mean, like one of
any federal authorities listening to this,
yes,
is entirely
federal friends.
Entirely fictitious. This is not a blueprint for an attack. So, just want to make sure
Is it not, though?
It's not for the purposes of the lawyers listening now, Dom.
That is correct.
Yeah, okay. I did love that our talk had to have a legal disclaimer in it.
Yes,
right?
It did.
Don't take my advice as advice. I'm just a dude talking on a stage.
Right.
And I digress. Okay, 4T Engineering uses a VDI, or a virtual desktop environment, right? Desktops as a service built by an MSP in public cloud infrastructure. Let's start with that. One more thing. Monday morning, if I can find my mouse, I'm real blind. Monday morning, a VDI machine was performing horribly, stopping developers from working on the water delivery system.
Every MSP has had this call.
Nobody, right, Dom? What do you think now? So far, where's your brain, Dom?
I mean, I'm confused because I've literally never seen VDI perform poorly, so I don't understand.
Of course not. It would not be like any VDI that you have access to. This is a hypothetical.
This one's one of those dirty ones that don't exist.
You got an AI VDI. I got it.
Oh, yes, that's pretty true.
I had to. I'm sorry.
I have a hard time finding a white mouse on a screen. Okay, 4T reaches out up to the MSP about the inability to work, as one would do. The MSP reports that the system has high resource usage and has for the whole weekend. MSP was not, okay, let's get into that. I'm going to try to zoom in enough that you can't read what I already have next to it. But Dom, where would you be in your mind at this point? High resource, where do you go?
My first leap is not going to be incident. My first leap is going to be some kind of program hang. Oftentimes we build VDI to support some really crappy .NET application or something. So I'm going to look for that problem.
Yeah, 100%.
Like a legacy application.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the MSP was not asked to monitor systems for performance necessarily in this case. They were only an MSSP or a security play in this case, right? So we say that they weren't asked. The CSP performance alerts were never set up, as no one set them up. They weren't necessarily on by default, were they?
Right. They are not on by default. Right. To be clear, they are not on by default.
Right. Performance alerts.
In fact, you have to pay to get those kind of alerts.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly.
$10 for hot patching. Oh, sorry. I'll see myself out. Yeah, you do have to pay to get those kind of alerts. Actually, at least just set it up. I think you were trolling me. But 4TE assumed the MSP would be monitoring. And that never happens, right? We don't ever have a position where you're like, oh, they're definitely doing this. I don't have to ask them.
That thing.
All right. Further investigation. They find a common crypto miner has evaded anti-malware controls, or at best had a low alert. What are we thinking now, Dom? Gets pretty simple, doesn't it?
My leap is still not going to be external actor. My leap is going to be some doofus on the network. So first, I'm going to figure out under which identity it's running before I make assumptions. I want to diagnose one thing at a time here.
So is it an incident?
Right. Is it an incident or an event at this point, or is that even defined? Right. You have
it is an event. Well, assuming we've defined it, for me, it would be an event. It warrants investigation. Yeah.
All right.
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. And I think that's the thing is if, maybe that's not been discussed with 4T Engineering. And we made up a fictitious MSP, Dom, Guy Fliegelman.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So
I didn't read his contract. So.
Oh, that's right. Exactly.
It's a very standard MSP contract.
Yeah. It has 100% liability of anything that I don't say I'm doing here is all 100% on the customer. Right. You've seen those MSPs,
that always
right?
stands up in court.
No problems. It'll never be an issue. I promise. As we Johnny foreshadow for the rest of this thing, the MSP looks at the 7 days of logs they do have, and it's because that's what was turned on by default. And it appears that it's been going on for a while. I mean, at least the full 7 days they have there. No 4T Engineering employee reported the slowdown. Like, where's their reporting responsibility, potentially? Did we ever speak towards what the reporting responsibility would be for that? The MSP did not have a threshold for declaring an event or an incident related to performance, and in the same breath, and related to this crypto miner. And pretty much I would think, Dom, from the same perspective of the initial thought might be an insider idiot, right? Nothing any more than that, or compromise, or even being just tricked into potentially, using that system. Or deploying the crypto miner themselves, right, in the user context, if possible.
I mean, it depends on what year this happened, because during those hot crypto years, I mean, everybody was dorking out on crypto miners. So
I will say, I'll tell on myself here. I'll make this more plausible.
Okay.
There was a time. I'm not going to say when that time was, but there was a time when I owned a lot of Dell servers that I paid for myself to place in lots of client environments. Okay. And I did not want to waste my clock cycles that were already running on system and already had a computer running. And I may or may not have allegedly deployed crypto miners in the midnight to 2 a.m. hours to get 2 hours of compute clock cycles out of my hundreds of Dell servers. Allegedly. So, Dom, I'm with you on that. That's where my mind goes too, is there have been times in past where people were on that kind of stuff. You could have an engineer that's internal that has access that's like, bro, I'm going to run this, and forgets it's running, or doesn't know they haven't killed it. Or I'm not saying that's the right answer.
There was someone somewhere got arrested.
Punch me.
Go. The story is too old for me to remember, but someone got arrested for theft of electricity because they had
what it would be.
Crypto miner into their employers.
100%. That is exactly what it would be, and I think the statute of limitations passed for me on this one, so we're okay. But several water companies in rural North Carolina start getting reports that chemicals are extremely low. In fact, months in advance of when they should be, right? These tanks are set up to have, sodium hydroxide, aluminum sulfate, to dump in and make the water more basic or make it more acidic in their own right. And so these are there. But they're missing a lot of chemicals. What do you think?
On incidents. So like a cyber aside, if I am a company that puts chemicals in water that is intended to go into people's face, I would want to have some declaration of an incident that says, hey, the chemicals are wrong and they're not supposed to be wrong. That is a form of an incident. It may not be cyber, but we have a problem. So
but
I would declare
it a cyber incident.
Well, that's what Dom just said. He said it may not be cyber, right? Because it could just be a physical valve problem. It could be
a leak.
Lots of things, right? And to Dom's point, incident in my mind starts getting defined by harm, right? An incident from an event is harm. And the delineation that could be measured there, in my opinion, right? So harm, especially like drinking you said that go in your face, Dom, like that sunk in, but that's a good one. This was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah, they go in your face. So we now have extremely low chemical levels in one unit. And to your point, that could be like, or several. Maybe it's just something to do with North Carolina. Who knows? Like maybe there's something going on. The installers are doing bad.
Just like a bad batch of valves. Like who knows,
100%. So now too much chemical seems to be disappearing into cities' water supplies at random levels of magnitude. So we're starting to get these kind of reports. To your point, Dom, I would be defining an incident from there. Yeah, and that is where we're seeing this as an incident. Chlorine dioxide, aluminum sulfate are all dumped nearly 1 month's of supply in one day. Okay, what now? This is getting scarier. Quickly thereafter, a report comes in from another city and another, seemingly working backwards through the common update process for 4T engineering software. That's a poignant one. What's going on, Dom? Explain it for me like I'm 5.
Well, now one of two things have happened, and I am declaring a cyber incident because one of the two possibilities is supply chain compromise, and someone's gotten my code base. That's the scary one. The other likely problem though is that we just missed a bug in QA. Right, that could have happened, but I
Sure.
am going to declare an incident so that we have an IR team ready to go should this be a supply chain compromise.
Yeah. Dom, I want you to keep in on that theme of explaining the options that could be here, right? Because that is the reality of this. And what I like about doing these kill chain methods is imagine you're reading a story and trying to make conjecture of what's happening. It allows you to go, what do you think are those possibilities? And it's not just valuable for trying to find the right one. It's valuable for
Right.
chaos engineering,
Absolutely.
right? What is that? Like, talk through why does it matter to talk about the ones that it isn't today?
Well, I mean, because that might be the thing that happens tomorrow, right? I think, and we're not going to get into it, but I think, at least for the audience, to look into like Chaos Monkey.
Oh, it's a good one,
right? It's good.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right? Like intentionally breaking.
I'll just go pull this Nick.
Yeah, at random in
See what
random ways at
happens.
random times to make sure that the site reliability engineering is done properly. It gives us a robust system.
So Dom's two options are supply chain, and even that supply chain can have nuance because it could be in my direct control, or it could be supply chain outside of my control, like third-party compromises through maybe a bad module or something that's being used in my code, right? From that.
Well, and if we go down that route, I mean, there could be a 0-day in our
Yep.
whatever ESP32 controllers. There could be something with our cloud platform. There could be DNS poisoning. Like, who knows, right? So it's really tough to make any sort of
DNS
judgment, but we know we need to investigate.
Yeah, and DNS poisoning could come with some other problems too, right? Because you might have to have command and control response, things like that. But yeah, let's get into it. So the next thing we do logically, to Dom's point, is we ask, hey, devs, did you do anything? Was there anything changed? Did we have a QA problem, a code that was changed that interfaces with the dumping of chemicals or the measurement of chemicals or something in that chain,
Who wrote
if you will,
that while
flow?
true?
Yeah, right. While true is inverse function. You're like, no. 100%. Right. Okay. So developers determine a change in firmware to all devices was pushed over the weekend using the automated pipeline. So now we're back to that point that I was making earlier. We started seeing them go offline or have problems, kind of seemingly as it goes from the way they're being updated, which then gives us this kind of trigger of maybe it is something being pushed out in my supply chain. Back to Dom's point, though, that would also encompass a QA problem. Right. And so now we see that change that justifies both. So we can't kill either one of those options yet. Would everybody agree?
Yeah, absolutely.
At this point, Dom?
Yep.
All right, cool. Let's move forward. I'm so old, y'all. I got glasses that are supposed to work for this, but I apologize. I'm too far away. All right. This change was a simple change to DNS, seemingly an innocuous redirection of where controllers communicate for updates. And I say DNS, I believe this is actually misworded. I'll put it in the original spirit of this because I just haven't fixed it yet. Maybe we fix it live. Simple change to the DNS record, and that is being pointed to, right? Because if it was just a change to DNS, then I could fight back uphill from the DNS provider, right? But if it is being changed to, instead of a.com to b.com, and you don't own b.com, right, there is less recourse.
We've changed the host name, right? We
changed the host name. That's what we need, is the host name. Yeah. Simple change. That's what happened. Seemingly innocuous redirection of where the controllers go for communications. Now, Dom, let's pick this apart. What could be happening here? Like, could be mistakes.
Now
still.
I'm concerned, right? And I want to understand the business. Like, is moving infrastructure like that something we do? Because most companies like this don't. Right? Update.microsoft.com has been around since Microsoft Update has been around. So right. I'm going to be concerned about a change like this. I'm going to start leaning towards there's an external problem here because it's just in my mind intrinsically less likely to be a QA problem at this point. But I still can't rule it out. It could be a QA problem.
We're trying to apply Occam's razor here, right? The simplest answer is usually the most correct. So I would agree. We're in this place where now we don't know what happened and it is redirected. At this point, the code has been deployed. So what happens if it gets redirected? Have you ever made a firewall change that locks you out from remote?
Oh yeah.
What do you have to do?
Right.
Dom.
Everyone has the same size.
It's exactly the same death in your soul. You got to
Roll
get in your
trucks.
car
and go.
and roll trucks because
That's
you
right.
have locked yourself out remotely. In fact, there was so bad of a problem in the early Cisco days that there was always a modem connected
Yeah, that's right.
to get back into
I
the back
remember-
of the control
I remember
plane,
those
right?
days.
And you're like, oh, that's all right, dial it in. I screwed up, boys. Right? So, but in this case, if those controllers stop talking to A.com and start talking to B.com, and if B.com can control them,
Mhm.
we have a problem.
Yeah.
If A.com is ours and they start disappearing, just like we have here, the code has been deployed to 75% of the United States water companies under 4TE. So 75% of them have all stopped talking to us. We have all these offline systems that we now believe are potentially online somewhere outside of our control. And that's why Dom asked if we want to see if there's a change to infrastructure.
Right.
If
B.com, to be clear.
Yeah, did we just buy B.com to move over and load balance or something, right? And if that was the case, then fine, no big deal. We'll check it on the other side, just like moving one lab tech server to another, or a Screen Connect to another, or things of those
And there
natures, right? You gotta
is,
wait
you
for it.
know, it's worth pointing out, like if you look at high available DNS, like Route 53, they give you a .net,
Sure.
a .org, and a .info, and they do that because it's different root zones, so you're resilient against the root zones. So, in something as important as making sure that the face water is correct, you might want to have redundant TLDs. So this could also, like, you're grasping at strings at this
Top
point.
level
You're
domains,
panicking because there's a chemical problem. But you have to be really careful in a situation like this not to rule out one, the simplest answer, but two, any answer until you know you can rule it out.
Yeah, especially with human life in play, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to get to what the call to action is here. We're going to get this this demo. Okay, so none of the chemical controllers are responding. Reports are coming in across the country to seem to indicate randomness to the impact. Almost like this city's getting 4,000 units, this city's getting 12,000, this city's getting 12, and it's happening on an almost hourly basis. At this point, we haven't heard from anybody. We haven't heard from a threat actor. We know that we've heard from cities and counties that we're seeing stuff, that they're seeing things. We know we've lost access to our controllers, and we know we've pushed a firmware change in some form or fashion. The threat actor finally sends an email to your external PR address, explaining what they had done and what the ransom would be. The threat actor has changed all of the updated controllers to point to a server under their control. They stole and replicated the command and control infrastructure from us, right? The thing that has those cryptographic secrets potentially, that kind of stuff, and are now randomly pushing chemicals to various communities. Unpack what has to happen here, Dom. I started tackling it a little bit about
So much bad shit has gone on. Like, so they stole our source code.
in just two
Problem.
boxes, right? In just two boxes. Now we have a problem.
We for sure have an incident, right? And we're dealing with, they stole our source code. It's not great. We weren't managing cryptographic secrets properly, so they were able to get cryptographic secrets. Never, ever, ever, ever store those with source code. And they've emailed us and said, "Hey, we are in effect going to kill a bunch of people if you don't pay us money." So we now have a massive problem, and we're critical infrastructure. So we multiply that problem by the federal
a
government.
lot.
Whatever
I want to pause for a second, dig into something, Dom, because you've started putting fake keys that just say, haha, not getting a public key in your source code. Just
I haven't done it
delicious.
yet. Someone else's.
Okay,
but
good.
yeah, I'm going to start doing that. It's fun.
That's hilarious. All right. Now we have a 12-hour clock established by the threat actor that says, after the 12 hours, we're going to dump everything everywhere all at once. I don't know if I can use that. That might be a movie title, I think, potentially. I tease. But random code verified to have been injected to hold hostage 10,000 cities. This is rolled out unless the ransom is paid. We made it a really large one. I don't think a startup would be that large, but still, it works. I would imagine CIS is involved doing this,
right?
jumping the gap.
I think Dom, you alluded to that, right? That now we have federal agencies we've got to get involved here.
CISA asked for logs. MSP is not provided for long-term logging.
Why not?
Maybe they never talked about it.
Yeah.
4TE has not provided long-term logging in this system and assumed the MSP had it.
That's right.
Right?
There's what's that word? Assumed.
There's 3 letters at the beginning of that word.
There is.
It is usually colloquially accepted to mean something.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, for sure. Right? So they assumed that the MSP had it. Third-party CSP logs are not available, so nobody set it up, which means we don't know stuff.
That's right. And we can't go recreate it.
Comma space. The infrastructure is not secure by default. And more so, again, you have to pay to store and process more logs if you would like more
Thank you.
logs.
Yeah, fair. To get rid of stuff, we are now in a point where we have to make a decision. So we have now been forced by this threat actor to say, you got to make a choice. We have a 12-hour clock that's now 11 hours, 58 minutes based on our show. And that clock is saying you have 12 hours to go have 10,000 coordinated communications, get people to go in and deal with stuff, this is terrifying.
This is
right.
This is bad.
Yeah, because if they dump all those chemicals, you know what the problem of adding chemicals to water is?
You can't get them out.
Yeah, you can't just pull them out by
Yeah,
boiling.
right.
It's not like killing bacterial things.
No.
This is chemicals. They don't just boil out. In fact, it gets more concentrated as you boil out the water. So unless you're distilling it out, which I don't know how many people have home distillation kits. I mean, I have some saran wrap and a pot and another pot, so I probably
A
work
little
through
bit
it.
copper tube, you know, you can get it
Yeah,
done.
man, you got copper too? You in the fancy money style, Dom. Dang,
Don't tell
I'm
anyone.
not
I don't
cool
want
enough for
nobody
copper.
stealing
Maybe
my
he's
copper.
distilling something other than water.
It might be. Oh, okay. Never mind. I withdraw my statement.
Just-
Okay, so the options are we can actually ask citizens by public announcement to say, don't drink water.
Right.
If you're in these cities, don't drink water.
Don't
Go
use
buy
your water.
drinking water. What are the downsides to that, Dom?
Oh man, like you know when a storm's coming, a hurricane or something to that effect, and you see what happens at the grocery stores. Nobody has
Yeah.
said you can't drink the water. Someone has just said it's going to be rough weather and we're going to have
Yeah,
problems,
right.
right?
And now
We are
you're
now
into
telling
a
people
clock.
you
Yeah.
cannot drink water, right? So I
Yeah.
mean, riots, looting, panic,
Yes. Oh.
people that don't
Yeah,
listen
yeah.
and don't trust you and die. Like this is a bad problem y'all have chosen as an example.
Yes,
I thank you. Option 2, pay the ransom and update the systems to remove the RNG function. Just say, fine, I'm paying the money. I'm going to go ahead and take care of it and hope that the threat actor does in fact change the A record back and does in fact step away from those servers, which I don't know that there's always a guarantee. In fact,
there is a
yeah, especially depending on who that actor might be.
That's right.
Right. So what's the problems with this one, Dom? I mean, we kicked off a little bit.
I mean, you hit it. Like you can get someone who doesn't do what they say, but actually, you know, that I feel like wouldn't happen in this scenario unless it was some sort of terrorist organization looking to do damage and make money. If it was a true cyber act, you know, I don't know, but my money's on CISA and the FBI and some other 3-letter agencies who are involved in the back are going to say, "Hey, these dudes, it's the only hope we have." Like, yeah.
There might be something.
Oh, we may have set that up for a bad failure, haven't we?
There may be a problem.
Number 3, don't pay the ransom. Tell the citizens stop drinking and have each water system manually updated by Farmer Fred, who was the guy that used to be the pail, bucket, and dipstick method of doing the treatment before this. Right? So now you have to go back to methodologies. You're also going to create the same panic. And you're also going to have a problem of getting 10,000 or so.
We have 10,000 systems.
Even if it was 200.
Right?
You have 10,000 cities. So how many devices are in 10,000 cities?
Exactly, right? And so 10,000 cities all have to update this, which means we have to help them.
So let's break into what we did in our talk. Let's get to that. We'll close this out because we're a little bit long. I apologize for everybody that we are a little bit long. But we've set the stage for a Sophie's choice, right? There's not a great answer that wins. In fact, to add to this injury in the talk, we made it to where the sanctioned actor on that OFAC control list is the person we're paying, and the insurance has now refused to pay, which means that you can still pay, but you will be in direct violation of a treasonous act in the United States as a company, which means you will probably be weighing the treasonous act versus the greater good of the death of American citizens.
Oh, no. Hold on. Counterpoint. If I'm working with CISA and FBI and whatever other agencies have gotten involved and they're telling me to pay it, I'm just following advice along.
And that's what we said on stage today too. But the insurance doesn't care.
The insurance doesn't care.
They're not going to pay it. They have written in the clause, so you're going to pay it. Yeah. So to the point though, you're right. I would be hoping that I get some legal defense as a result of having CISA and those do it. And I'd be looking for that quickly in 12 hours of decision point?
Right, and you know this it absolutely happened at 8 a.m. on a Monday morning, so we have all the time in the world, right?
What's funny is as we talked to a gentleman about this talk, what did he say to us? Remember the guy that when we brought this up and he said what?
What, the 12 hours?
No, the whole premise.
Oh, that it was dangerous?
No, he said this just happened.
It just happened.
Yeah,
sorry.
This just happened.
This just happened here in the San Francisco area.
Yeah. A small community, a very small community.
And yeah, no, exactly. And that happened like 10 minutes before we went on.
Yeah, we were about to go on stage, and he goes, "No, this legitimately just happened." I was
yeah.
like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, I'm like, oh no.
All right. So what are we trying to teach with this, right? Sophie's Choice. In our case, they do probably pay the ransom.
Right.
I can't imagine either of the other two working out. I think even then, it's still terrifying as to how quickly those come back. They left pretty quick. Maybe the threat actors will be good. Maybe they won't. Hopefully, they're good coders.
Well,
Did they build in a new backdoor for us? And I mean, there's all kinds of interesting things.
and I think the point though is really driving in, right? We have an MSP that's involved. What is the MSP responsible for? Like there was no clear responsibility of the MSP is responsible for setting up logs, doing a secure configuration of the systems, monitoring the systems for a certain thing. There was no clear definition of what the MSP was responsible for, what 4TE was responsible for. Like Matt, you mentioned, no one reported this.
Well, in our talk, it was, did CI/CD pipeline get discussed with
Right.
the MSP, MSSP,
Yeah,
or not?
They didn't
and
know
in this
that
case, they didn't. They didn't
know
know
it
about it.
existed. Exactly.
Right? And in the same breath, that nobody knew that they were logging and creating systems that weren't being logged, and they didn't know the MSP wasn't doing it. And all we're trying to posit to you and the audience today, and anybody that's watched it at RSA or before, or in this case, is these are the types of things that can go wrong when you don't have that explicit conversation. Now, we won't get into the actual moniker,
Right.
but you like to use the anchor method,
I do.
which we would overshare and violate the rules of our
Yes.
term. But we will at some point talk about that anchor method and how you can be very successful at having, hey, Willis, your job is to do audio, and my job is to talkie-talkie, and Jennifer's job is to tell me to stop talkie-talkie when I need to stop talkie-talkie. Like, we all have our roles, and we walk through those and talk about them in finite position. And if we don't, then there's an assumption made.
Yeah.
And every time there's an assumption made, it can be fine.
Mm-hmm.
It could be horrible. And I think what we're trying to get to is an advocation of using shared responsibility. I'll give another example that's clear. Imagine I need to patch a system for my client, all systems for my client, okay? And I say in my MSA, I'm going to patch all systems. Now, if I say I can only be held liable to the things I put in my MSA, I have put them in my MSA.
Right.
I now have a problem where I've only patched 30% of the systems. Why? Is it because my system failed? Or did I not cover that the client needs to leave their machines open?
Never leaves her machine on, ever. Just,
Right, ever.
You know?
Exactly.
You never patch
And they
it.
didn't pay for that SmartNet update, so it's not able to be downloaded. And we didn't do the firewalls because they were going to ride it out one more year. If we don't specify these things to who's responsible for what,
Right.
then we are going to put ourselves in the hands of the attorneys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not the fun place to be.
No.
Right? Because you have death in a 4T engineering. What we do go on to say is that several people die, that we have to deal with this. Who's responsible? Who's suing who wins? Right? And you're in a situation where if you've spelled it out in shared responsibility, it's easier to point out the failures and the gross negligence of someone's side of that coin. But if you've simply taken an MSA that says, I do this and that's only it, even in that MSA, I think that MSP is probably in trouble. They didn't patch.
Agreed.
And if they didn't get qualifying things as to why they shouldn't fail, then they're not going to be protected from that.
Well, I think there's one thing to foot stomp here in our talk, right? Like, and you alluded to it just a moment ago. The MSP didn't know about the CI/CD systems, right? They didn't know about that.
Yeah.
And 4TE presumed that they had secured and were monitoring them, and I think that goes to just some of the basics of the CIS controls, right? Like that inventory matters.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Understanding what is the MSP responsible for? What are those systems? What are the scope of those systems?
Yep.
And then to have that conversation on a regular basis.
And in writing.
In writing,
Yeah.
right? God forbid, in writing.
Well, and thinking about it too, and I forgot what you guys named your MSP, but did that MSP, like, are they equipped to handle a customer that does software development and has a CI/CD pipeline? We also need to get, like, can you take the load of that customer and what their demands of you are going to be?
You and I just had this conversation, Dom. We have a friend of ours that runs a company that writes some code. It's pseudocode because they're doing a lot of dynamics, but that writes some code for the manipulation of those dynamic systems, right? And they needed a new MSP for a reason. And we were thinking about it, and we were like, do I send it to this guy? And I said, no, we have to send it to the only MSP that we know that really does modern CI/CD and those type of securing those pipelines, right? And injecting it in the shift left and all the things, right? And so I think the point is very poignant, Dom, that if you don't have the right party, then even if you had a shared responsibility, they wouldn't be able to do their half of the share,
And I think there's a, I mean, and by the way, that's an amazing observation, Don. That's like really insightful. I love that. But I think that the point I'm going to foot stomp is a little bit of a different take on that. Right, we have an MSP that may or may not be aware that they have regulatory requirements. Right? We have 4TE, and if
there's no MSPs that might be under a contractual obligation like 800-171 or CMMC that might be operating as if they didn't know that was a problem. This is crazy talk.
That would never happen. Again, right, Matt? It's hypothetical.
Let's say hypothetical.
It's hypothetical.
It's hypothetical.
But I think that the point here, like we had an incident that required CISA to get involved.
Yeah.
Right? It was a mandatory, federally
which meant it was already critical.
Yes, right. And so the time that you want to learn that, the time that you want to figure out that you have mandatory logging or mandatory secure configuration or change control is not when a federal authority is standing in your doorstep.
That's how I found out. I'll close this with this. We're over time, so I want to get to the end of it. I want to say thank you, and then I'll tell the story and we'll close it out properly. Okay. But I had an example of this myself. We were working with an engineering firm. In fact, they were a one letter and one number off of our fictitious one, and might have been the beginnings of this thought in my head. But about 10 years ago, I was working with one that was under ITAR regulations. Okay. And they hired a foreign national to be their front desk person without ITAR segmentation and separation, and we designed it that way. Who's at fault? When the State Department came and took interviews for the next 3 months of back and forth, they had to keep the guy on employment and make him work at home with no remote systems for like 6 months. Kid got paid for 6 months to be a receptionist that can't reception. And so it was wild. But like the State Department didn't find it funny. And I found out about the ITAR capabilities and things at that moment, even though they'd already attested and had an ATO and all the things that existed for that to exist. And I won't beleaguer the point, but it happens every day.
It happens every day, and I think that it goes to the point of having these kind of conversations between an MSP and the customers, right?
Yeah.
Understanding what are the regulatory requirements that we as an MSP need to be aware of, and if the MSP is not familiar or equipped for that, then like back away and raise your hand.
Danger, Will Robinson.
That's right.
Okay, I'll close out with a wavy arm. Danger, Will Robinson. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for staying 7 minutes late, a little over time. We're trying to keep these under 30 minutes for y'all. Awesome to have you here. You're brilliant. You're funny. Thank you so much for giving as much as you do to this community.
Thank you.
I respect you in more ways than almost anybody could understand in so many professional pieces. And for what you're doing as an MSP, having your CMMC level 2 is something I aspired to almost 11 years ago in 2016 or 15, whatever it is, 9 years. I can't math. But I'm proud of you, and thank you for being with me, and thanks for doing this with me. It was awesome.
Thank you. This was a lot of fun, and I have to say, Dom, like hat tip to you for some incredibly insightful.
That's Dom.
That's commentary. That's amazing. But thank you for having me here. This session was fun. The talk was fun, and sharing a passion for overly spicy things with you is also very fun.
I may have smoked like 12 pounds of peppers to bring them to you for this event. So
it's incredible. So thank you.
See y'all.
Bye.
Lawrence, thank you so much for joining us. That is our show this week. We appreciate you being with us. And look, sometimes the show goes over, but the conversation is just too good for us to cut it off. And that's how it goes. And you're just going to have to deal with it. Come and join us next week on Wednesday. I'm really excited. Merrill Fernando is coming back, and I think this will be his third appearance on this show. Super excited to have him. We're gonna talk more about Meister, where it's come, where it's going, a little bit of E5 and what P2 is going to get you, and whatever Merrill wants to talk about. So join us next week, same time, same place. We'll see you then.